A meetup is basically for us to meet some new folks who are passionate about some of the same stuff and try and work a little bit together. So hopefully that's going to be a lot of fun. And I think I hopefully can learn some stuff from you guys as well. Because the terrible thing about being on a stage is sometimes you're talking at people. And so do remember to use those mouths of yours and ask questions, and you'll be working together as well quite a bit. Very briefly, we obviously have a theme, kill him with positivity. It's interesting times, right? I don't think I've ever lived in as volatile times as this. And I started my career back in copyright. Any copywriters? Excellent. One copywriter representing. So 2009, as you can hear from my accent maybe, I'm from Copenhagen, and we did host in 2009 the climate summits. As obviously we all know today, we had Tony Blair there, Barack Obama, but nothing really came out of that summit. So I at that point did ask myself, what the heck can I actually do as a copywriter, as a creative, as a marketing person, to use my skills for the better? And that was the beginning of my journey with the first book, Goodvertising. Early days, 2010, off purpose. Since then, obviously a lot have happened. I don't know how you feel about it, but it becomes a bit more mainstream, right? More discussions around climate, more discussions around social issues. In many instances, and again, I'm from Denmark, the water is very cold, so I'm going to use a wetsuit joke. You know what a wetsuit is, right? Most of the time, sustainability marketing ends up a bit like pissing in a wetsuit. In the beginning, it feels really, really nice, but after a while, it might end up stinking. So I don't think our industry had been very successful at creating change. I've been here for 15 years, and I'm growing incredibly impatient. We're not where we should be. Denmark is somehow branded as one of the most sustainable countries in the world, yet our climate footprint is very, very far from sustainable. We're eating up about 5 more planets than we have, so it's not a very easy thing. One of our poster childs of climate, Greta Thunberg, whom we all know, are now busy brokering peace. So what do we have left? What advocacy can we actually trust in? So what we're going to do in this session, and you're going to help me, is we are going to try and turn the narratives around. Because I do think that I have failed. Goodvertising, what a horrible name, because Goodvertising is a moral imperative. Good, you're bad. I hate that name now, because that's definitely not what it should be. It should be inclusive. It should be something we all can engage in. And for those of you who were here at Open House for Good yesterday, that was exactly what that was about. Don't need a wristband or a pass to take part in these conversations. So we're going to explore something interesting here, because in a time of doom and gloom, it's really hard to keep the optimism. It's really hard to keep the optimism. So let's just, as a little exercise here, see how your state of optimism is. I'm not talking about your hangovers or anything like that. I want your sort of view on the world right now. Are you optimistic or are you pessimistic? So let's begin with the optimists, because they're often the faster people in the crowd, right? Any optimists in the house? Let's get some hands up. You have been out drinking way too much. Okay. So a lot of pessimistic people in the crowd. I do get it. Too much rosé, not great for it. But so how do you change these narratives around? Through my creative career, I found out that 2 of the most powerful forces of change is love or hate. I wrote my first book because I hated what our industry was doing. I hated 99% of advertising, so I thought I could change that. But sometimes we also need to embrace love, because love is also a very, very positive driver of change. I don't know how many of you know Chris Jordan. Chris Jordan is a photographer. He made a very, very iconic photo of an albatross that has swallowed so much ocean plastic, so it died. Already too much doom and gloom for her. She's already leaving. But through his career of activism and using scary doom and gloom images, I had a conversation with him a couple of months ago. And he said, I actually failed as an artist, because I thought I was doing this movement a tremendous You know, I was building momentum. I was opening people's eyes towards all these crises around the world. And then he showed me one image, which was basically an image, almost like a little island peeking out of a sea or something like that. And I was like, so what, Chris, what is that about? And I thought instantaneously, it's climate change, it's rising oceans. And he said, no, this is just a lovely picture of the Chilean nature, because I really want people to fall in love, to appreciate nature. So I think we need to kind of embrace a different type of storytelling where we invite people in, where it's not about values, us looking down at people, but we actually just try and touch a human level. 2 months ago, we came out with a report together with WARC, which is the effectiveness experts. It's part of Lions. If you don't know about WARC, go and talk to some of the crews. But we looked at a whole decade of advertising, the most effective advertising. And we applied a sustainability lens and an environmental lens. I don't know what you would sort of think that would go when we talk about the 100 best campaigns globally over 10 decades. Would it go up? Would it go down? What's your sort of... It's a community meetup. I'm not scary. I know I'm tall, but you can talk. Oh, that's old. That's a fair question. Back to my Danish accent. Yes, the question was just out of 100, over a decade, and we look at the most effective work globally. How do you think sustainability campaigns and social campaigns were doing? Were they very prominent? Was it on the rise? So that's sort of the question. Is it on the rise? You would say that was going up? Yeah, going up, yeah. I think, yeah. There's a lot of nodding there. Yeah, right, yeah.
I think maybe there's more of them, but maybe they're less effective.
Yeah?
It's becoming something that everybody talks about, but perhaps maybe the effectiveness
has gone down. So I was actually siding with you before we got the results, because my second book was called The Hero Trap, basically saying a lot of brands talking about this stuff, but my little shit test, BS test, is what brand have actually created real change in my life. So every time I come across a brand that says we're purposeful, we're like, I'm just asking, so what have you done? How have you changed my life? Am I eating healthier now? Am I actually being guided towards more sustainable choices? So I sided with you, and I thought that would be the case. The crazy thing is, from 2014 to 2024, it was pretty stable. 30%, a little bit up and down, of the world's most effective work has a social environmental component. I'm so tired every time I hear this pushback. People talking purpose down, talking these things down. It's not true. The data does not show that. Actually, it does show us, if we want to be really effective, these are great drivers. So why is that the case? Why is that the case? And that's why we're going to explore positivity today. Advertising hasn't changed over the years. It's about emotions. It's about storytelling. Stories that really wholeheartedly touch us. I have, my brother has two lovely daughters, and one of them is playing football. She's 15, she got selected to the national team in Denmark, and I'm very happy, I'm voting for her. But the problem is, the thing that she gets paid compared to if she was a guy, it's like a joke. That's an emotional story. It makes me upset. So these stories are incredibly emotional. So what we're going to explore is, let's not go with hate and anger. Let's try and see, can we spark some positive feelings? Curiosity, excitement. Yeah? Cool? Good. Silence. Okay. So I spoke a little bit about hate and love. So let's stick with love. There's too much hate in the room anyways. So, and to exercise your voices as well. So I want you to shout out something you love. Drinking rosé is an absolutely honest choice. So I'm going to count down to 3, okay? Shout out something you love. Sunshine. You're so fast. I didn't even get to... Why are you sitting in here? I really value that you show up. If you love sunshine and you're sitting in here, that means you're very passionate about the topic. Thank you so much. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Good. I couldn't hear any of it, but that's also okay because it's personal. But think about all these things that we love. That's why the one thing I hope we can all agree on today, let's not use the word sustainability. We're going to put a swear jar over here. Every time you use it, you pay €1. We need to talk about those emotions, those things. For me, sustainability and why I love it, it's about life. It's about connecting with people. It's about talking about things that we really care about, that we're passionate about. That's why it works. Why it doesn't work is because most of the time, whether it's on education or whether we don't have the time for it, we take a very tokenistic approach to this. Talk about the same thing. I judged the Sustainable Development Goal lines about 5 years ago. There's so many same old. Food waste, ocean plastics. Let's dive deeper. Let's touch people. Good. So what we're going to do now is to get a little bit of meetup time going. So I want to sort of dive into a little bit of the activism part of it, because there's many types of activism. Activism can quite often be angry, but it can also actually be quite cute and quite nice. There's this guy, Ron Finley. I don't know if you know the guy. So in LA, he thought, for those of you who've been to LA, it's a pretty concrete type city, right? Let's agree on that. So what Ron Finley did, he did create a movement for growing fresh produce around the city. So he's known as sort of the gangster grower. That's what he does. So sort of positive activism. You absolutely cannot ignore when you go somewhere in LA and you suddenly have, like, I don't know, broccoli or tomato. I don't know what they grow there, but anyways, it's sort of a nice type of positive activism. On the super commercial scale, I don't know how many of you have seen old campaign in the early days of Innocent before they got bought up by Coca-Cola, but you go into the supermarket, it's challenging to get people's attention in the supermarket, but then they put on these really super cute knitted hats. How many of you have seen that? Yeah. Didn't that give you like a little bit like, that's pretty weird, but it's kind of evokes a nice little emotional feeling, right? So we're going to do a little group exercise here, and I always think that it's good to combine the optimist with the pessimist. So for those of you who raised your hands and were optimists, do try and find a pessimist. So let's get the optimist hands up again. You're the optimist folks, right? Good. So sit, connect with a pessimist, and what I want you guys to discuss is examples of, for example, positive activism or ways where communication have been positive around climate change or social issues. Just 2 and 2, this is a meetup. You're going to meet some fantastic new people. Probably going to put a smile on your face, or maybe they are so pessimistic, so you're going to leave a little bit downer. We're going to just do this for a couple of minutes, okay? Cool, let's go. Is my accent so bad?
No, I think we've got already.
Yeah, the prompt was just to feedback on, for example, positive activism that you have come across, or positive campaign around social and environmental issues. Right. Yeah, so just a little, yeah, hi. See a bit of chocolate? You okay? You okay?
Jimmy Fallon. Yeah,
Yes.
He covered all the campaigns that we know. And
Yeah.
like typically the ones that we see just drive us away from them.
Yeah.
Like the street campaigns.
Yeah.
About oil spills and pigs being slaughtered and whatever. So,
Yeah. It's very true, right? There's so much of that. And I'm going to talk about it in a while, but the honest truth of it, we haven't learned anything from tobacco advertising. So typically what happens with smokers is if you see cancer written lungs on a packaging, you keep smoking
The opposite.
and you avoid the campaign.
It's the same with like most pharma medicine. So if you look at the medicine for diabetes rates haven't gone down, they've gone up, right? Same for pretty much any illness. Whatever you get sold from pharma doesn't help the root cause of it. It helps maybe deal with it, but also the problem is we have now so many other side effects from it that we don't talk about. So I feel like that was the first example that came to mind. Talking, so
Yeah, so we need to find some positive examples. You need to...
My friends are here.
Oh, lovely. Come join.
Hello. We're talking about
We've got chocolates for you. We've got chocolates. Oh, you already got chocolates. You can take one more.
how do you consider stuff sticks like 7 times harder than brain and positive stuff?
Maybe, but it depends on whether you want to change behaviors.
Yeah.
You know,
Or just like influence
because you could, because you get necessarily inspired to act by negative stuff. Not always. You might actually be in a time of hopelessness, or giving up, or apathy. Whereas at least some of the research we've done, where we look at brands who got your back, people feel much more encouraged to actually act on it.
Yeah.
So if you take much more about sort of supportive roles, it's much more chance of you actually succeeding.
Yeah. Probably like good storytelling.
But also turn all of us into the heroes of the narrative, because it does help in that.
Yeah.
Instead of becoming the talk about itself, the campaign, really making you being part of it, it's so inspiring. So that's also, Cool. Wow. Time flies. I love how the conversations are going. I love the energy. I can see there's a lot more optimists, convinced optimists. I don't know if it's because I've been bribing you with chocolates. Might be. Any great examples came out of this? Did you feel that it was easy to find examples of positive activism or examples of positive campaigning? We got a hand up there already. Thank you.
I have a good answer to this. I found out from Isabel that she also works in advertising, and that she actually isn't really a pessimist, just kind of frustrated with the fact that a lot of her clients and a lot of the projects aren't really looking to do as like good for society, good for different causes type of advertising projects. So we found out that, like she was saying, since you also felt that way and a decade plus later you're still here, that means that gives her hope. You know, that's a good answer.
Thank you. Was very I trust you. I've given up a lot of times, but I keep coming back. But let's have someone else. Somebody else wants to share. There's no right and wrong. We know that in creativity. There. Thank you. You're gonna get it.
It's funny because we actually said exactly the same thing. So I work also in advertising, and I didn't put my hand up as an optimist, and I consider myself a pessimist when it comes to the current state of play for very similar reasons that we spoke about actually. But generally, I'm an optimist, and I think like we both came with examples. And my thing that I always think about is the "This Girl Can" campaign. Because I'm really passionate about female human rights generally, but especially like female empowerment and like the gender pay gap and women's rights. And This Girl Can was just such a fantastic example of a real positive framing of what can be a negative message. I think it still stayed with me years later.
Amazing, and for those who don't know, This Girl Can was if I remember rightly, I'm a living a library of good cases, but I think it was Sports England who created this campaign of not your traditional sort of sports imagery of successful woman doing this or that, but actually sort of the hard sort of struggle that it is to do sports, and then just encouraging people to say this girl absolutely can. And it touches on two important things. We're here to change stuff. That's what we're in the business of doing. That's why I said the BS, the bullshit test to any brand is what change do you actually create in people's lives. It's not easy. It's simply not easy. The interesting thing about Sports England is that they create us as we are the heroes, right? We get this support. You can do this. So I would call those types of campaigns transformative campaigns. The brand is not the hero. We are the heroes. When we do research on that, and when you take that perspective, there's typically, this is research we did in the US together with GSK, there's 10% higher chance that people actually act on the message. So that's a very important distinction. Like, do you just talk about all the great stuff you're doing as a brand, or transparency, call it what you want, or do you actually turn on all of us into the agents of change? The second thing, positivity. Getting back to that. So we haven't learned a thing. If we look at tobacco advertising, we've been dealing with for many years, it's also actually really sad to see that numbers of smokers are going up, etc. But let's not stick into that right now. It's just going to make me depressed. But anyway, most climate messaging, most doom and gloom messaging, the only thing that it does, it's give you that sort of apathetic, like, oh, I'm going to sort of give up. If you look at cigarette packaging with cancer-ridden lungs, if you are a smoker, you avoid that campaign and you keep smoking. It's exactly what happens with most environmental campaigning, is that it doesn't change our behaviors. We had a very good point from, and I can't see your name, Bats, so that's absolutely okay. Pamela had a very good point. So she said to me, but Thomas, positivity, but, and I don't know where you have the data from, but the data you said was that negative campaigning, negative messaging sticks 7 times better than positive experiences. And I think for anyone who has gone through loss or other breakups or whatever it might be, we all know that feeling that sort of sticks with us. The problem with that, though, is that doesn't correlate to behavior change necessarily. Because what tends to happen with that is we might actually stay a little bit hopeless and stay with the sorrow instead of actually acting on it. So positivity actually works as a really good driver of pushing us forward and on giving us that this girl can. And we need to reframe, because as I said, we haven't really been able to change these narratives. So we need more positive narratives. Yes, 2 questions at the same time, amazing. Yes, microphone. Thank you.
Hello. Maybe an option. I'm a smoker, so what you said was like a real something. Maybe an option is to really evangelize to all brands to connect with one objective. Let's say Corona cleans the water, and then Heineken does something else. So we do not have the frequency that the message needs. And we are looking for differentiation, but let's say we all agree in one main thing. So I guess if we do that, we can change at least one behavior, one at a time. What do you think?
I absolutely love it. I can see it's just the creativity is already simmering. It's really good. I mean, it's a fantastic initiative. I think we should launch that. There's been examples of, for example, Parlay for the Oceans, very early days, we had Project Red with Bobby Shriver, etc., that used the color red to fundraise to combat HIV. They did collaborations with Adidas and Apple and others. And we have another question from Fred.
This is a big one. I don't even know why I'm asking the question, really. It's a safe space, is that right? But I guess I'm kind of thinking about positivity. You know, the light needs the darkness. Rather than trying to reframe the negative, do we actually need to shine a light on the negative, use it, and push away from it? Use it. Someone used a really interesting phrase in one of the presentations earlier today about the sort of the judo flip, the momentum of the big guy to kind of from the small guy to flip it over and then but be on top. Without the negativity, the positivity somehow doesn't have a stage or a frame to kind of sit against. I don't know. I'm just sort of observing, stroke, questioning.
I want to pick up on that.
Yeah.
That's actually something we've spoken about a lot recently in my agency, which is like doing a campaign for a client at the moment that has. They solve an inherently negative problem, and they're often very resistant to talking about that problem in their advertising because of all this, we have to be positive. And of course, you do need positivity. You need to make people smile, laugh, whatever. But without the negative thing, the positive message doesn't land because you don't get that lovely moment of resolution. You don't get that moment of happiness because what you need is to find a way to talk about the negative in a positive framing. And I think sometimes people skip over that when they talk about positivity, right?
Very, very, yeah, two Brits, very, very direct there, and an amazing point as well. I mean, and first of all, we don't want to be the orchestra just playing funny tunes while Titanic sinks, because that's not going to help us anywhere. Let me try and reframe it a little bit. I think sometimes the challenge can be we always need an antagonist and a protagonist. We always need a hero and an enemy. So how can we do that? We can't just create a narrative that's just super funny. One of my favorite campaigns some years ago that did really, really well in Cannes, and it was all the way back to when you actually sat in the theater and had a collective viewing experience of the work. I absolutely miss that, because when they played a campaign that I'm sure a lot of you know, which was for, I think, Australian rail company, Dumb Ways to Die. Yeah, thank you. There's another one who also has a library that's just like chung, chung, chung. But like that type of thing, it was a very serious message. Very serious message. People are dumb enough to die on a train track, but somehow they made that into almost a franchisable thing with games and tunes, and it's always stuck in my mind, the da, 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 da. And I think that's an example of how you can still have an antagonist and a protagonist. Good. That was an awareness campaign. Okay, no, okay. She said that, but that was an awareness campaign. Was that a behavior change campaign? I mean, so here's another thing. And I'm happy you brought that up. One thing that we tend to do in climate is, as I said, why I didn't like the title Goodvertising, is because it becomes a moral imperative. I grew up on a very small island, Bornholm, in the middle of Baltic Sea. My parents were hippies, they moved there. So I grew up with a lot of fishermen and a lot of farmers. Right now, they feel vilified. They feel that we're pointing fingers at them. They feel that the food that they love to eat, in Denmark we eat a lot of pork still. I think there are 4 times as many pigs than people in Denmark. There it is. So how can we get them involved in changing behaviors if we're pointing fingers at them? If we're saying they're not doing good? One of the keys there is actually just to get people to laugh a little bit at something they're doing that might not be like picture perfect. And I think that's what that campaign, Dumb Ways to Die, does in a really, really nice way. it kind of makes you laugh a little bit at how we sometimes have a risky behavior or something like that. So anyways, again, I want you guys to work a little bit. The most important thing is actually you meet up and talk. But I did prepare a little assignment for you. And sorry for taking a very tokenistic thing, to be honest, but it needed to be like a no-brainer type thing. So just wanted to create a brief, very, very simple, just saying, okay, unfortunately, we have something called plastic bottles, an issue that should be pretty solvable. So how do we maybe create a more positive framing around recycling? And you can choose to solve it on a personal level, emotional level, systemic level, but just give it a positive twist. Yeah? And this time around, we're going to do groups of 3. You know, stone, paper, scissor? Yeah? Stone, paper, scissor. Okay, so we're going to do that, and then you're going to team up in scissor groups, stone groups, and paper groups, okay? I'm going to count down. You're going to be fast again like last time. Just giving you a heads up. We're counting down. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Good. Go find your new friends. Keep them up there, else you can't find each other. Keep them up. Keep them up. A lot of scissor sisters. You guys are my little creativity army already of positive solutionists in some ways. Don't shake your head, believe in it. Yeah. We'll leave a little bit more in the well. We'll unfortunately only have time for short conversations, which is terrible. I know, it's disappointing. This is the real life of advertising world. The client wants the answer now. Mother Earth can't wait. Cool. So, so what you won't hear in most client meetings, unruly crowd. Good. Yeah. So let's get back to it. Shh. Good. There's very little time. I know creative minds always, we absolutely want to solve this, and I do understand that, but this is really just more about the process than the actual end result. So what I just want to check in with quickly is there one of the groups that want to just share a change in perspective maybe? You don't need to talk about the solution at all, but did this sort of spark different type of solutions? Anyone? Yeah? Or maybe somebody who hasn't spoken, sorry. Maybe somebody else. Yeah? Cool, good, thank you, thanks.
Hi. We talked about kind of having a reward system. Like whenever I was growing up, I think about whenever you would get the toppers from like cereal boxes and then turning those into school for rewards. So doing something like that, either with the whole bottle or with that, but like people love free stuff. So anything where you can do rewards or like giving back to the community, something like that.
Great. That is actually one solution that does work, economic incentive. It's a way of framing positivity. I can tell you in Denmark, we have I think it's 98.5% recycling rate of plastic and glass bottles and aluminum bottles. So we can actually do this. The trick is deposit. So when you buy it, you pay 15 cents more, and when you deliver it back, you get the 15 cents back. It's really that easy. So it's a way we maybe should push industry. Cool. Anybody else on the process? Did it help on the framing? Yeah? Everybody's just, come on. You can.
I mean, in general, we were talking about the entire recycling way of how it goes and what we know about it, what we don't know about it, how we go to the landfill and what it's actually recycled in our country. And I think we all come from a different country, which is also super interesting to see that everybody has their different point of view and different way of doing. So we were talking about how we should reach out to customer, or maybe not. Is it the brand that should change? Is it the customer behavior that should change? Is it actually both of them that should change? Which we agreed on it, that you should do a bit of both way, right? Because if you change a product but the customer doesn't change after, it doesn't give a good end, or if you do the opposite, also it doesn't give a good end. And then at the end we were talking about maybe labeling, because we were talking about the beer brands that have 0.0, Heineken, who like has this distinguished color of blue that you know it is 0.0, and maybe it could be all the same, like, is it a recyclable bottle? We had no clue. So maybe if there would be a label on all recycle, also we were talking clothes can be coming from recycled bottles, so all of those kind of material will come with this label. It would also create a community around it, and people could recognize each other and know what they're willing to pay for. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. All they know.
We're already solving a lot of stuff. I mean, obviously, this is not necessarily easy. I think we've come some way as an industry in changing this. I think wholeheartedly we need to push much harder, and we need to change the narratives. And one way is obviously sort of reframing some of these things, and also looking at how we actually drive this behavior change, which is just so fundamentally difficult. I want to leave you with a couple of takeaways that's being mentioned, but do remember the emotional part. One key challenge is that marketing is from Mars and sustainability is from Venus. Most of the time when we talk about these issues, we take a rational approach. Why do we do that? Why do we think that putting math on a sticker is going to do anything? We forget that thing that actually touches us. And what really bothers me is that these things are just so incredibly emotional. I mean, sometimes when I watch case studies, I mean, for those of you who ever judged any of these categories, you kind of leave like, wow, like you go through so many different feelings compared to your average advertising. So remember that emotionality. I really think that we need to bridge that. And this also comes back to what some of you mentioned. How do we keep positive in all of this? It's terrible. It's really, really difficult. I remember when I had this idea to my first book, and I went to a very highly esteemed creative director of mine, and I said, I really want to write this book about advertising as a force for good. And I was young, creative, and he just looked at me, what makes you capable of doing that? What have you done since you can write that book? And I was so dumbfounded by his reply, and I just said, because I want to. And so sometimes I think we just need to, find a little bit of that sort of fighting force and actually say, this is fucking not easy, but it also makes it a lot of fun. So I do hope that today that you met a couple of shared, passionate positivity warriors. And again, in terms of behavior change, I think, if you want to change behaviors, and I know there was somebody who's been battling with smoking, pointing fingers, quite a few apparently. There's a new, yeah, exactly. Your loved ones can tell you, your doctors can tell you, the packaging can try to scare you to tell you, but the only one who can really take that change is you. So I think as an industry, we failed to take leadership in these issues, and I think hopefully all of you can now go out with a little bit of smile and do that. End up with a little bit of a rallying cry. Hopefully you become a little bit more positive. So as an end word, let's shout out just a positive word that we think about and make it loud so they can hear it in there. Okay? Gonna count down again. A positive word, a feeling that you have right now. Okay? A positive feeling. Hopefully there's a positive feeling. If you're a pessimist, find one. Okay? 3, 2, 1. Courage. Cool. Thank you so much. Please feel free to follow me on Instagram and LinkedIn. Plus, I will say there's an amazing sustainability session, 3:30 at the Terrace, the CMO Blueprint. Very good. Tomorrow there's a session at 1:15 about climate misinformation. So lots more sustainability, climate. Again, thank you. My name is Thomas. I enjoyed meeting all of you. Thank you. Thanks.